Hello everybody, and welcome to the video for Operation Restoring Legacy. First, let me give you a little bit of a background on the man who actually built the vehicle. My grandfather Kenny Sr. was a welder, fabricator, and machinist that retired from Caterpillar Incorporated in Decatur, Illinois. And he used these skills not just at work, he used them at home. He wanted a tractor, he built it. He built a tiller for it. He built 3 small Volkswagen-powered trikes, and then one day he saw a pamphlet. And he decided that was it. That was going to be his flagship vehicle, and he set to building it. He started in 1989, he finished it in 1991. This is a picture of the completed trike, and to be honest, one of my fondest memories. We did a lot of parades when I was younger. Okay, let's fast forward to more modern times. This is a photo of how we found the vehicle when we went to go pick it up. After we finally managed to get it home and get the snow off of it, we brought it inside and let it thaw out, and then we did a cursory inspection, and this is the stuff that we found. So let's start with what we found during the cursory inspection. Aside from one of the valve covers being almost completely off of the engine, we found a whole bunch of rust inside the head, and it had a red tinted paint to it. Then we started going around and finding a whole bunch of cut wires. This one is for the headlight system. This is the main harness to the front of the bike. And this would be the tail light wires. The alternator wires were ripped free. The end was broken off, so that takes a little bit of force to do. The starter was all but disconnected, and one of the wires was obviously in the wrong place. They didn't try to hide this, they just left the nut kind of hanging out there. Nothing was tightened up. The engine had an extra 1.5 quart and smelled an awful lot like turpentine, and had debris like floor dry in it. All the hose clamps for the cooling system were absolutely just sitting there. They were disconnected. As you can see when I pointed it out that they were just sitting on the hoses. The firing order was completely rearranged, like we weren't going to know how a 350 works. The neck on the forks were just, it was just unspun, it was undone, it was just sitting there. The transmission had floor dried and an awful lot of extra fluid in it. Obviously that doesn't look like transmission fluid anymore, now does it? It was so full it was past the filter. This vehicle was not started when we bought it. We did the inspection first. They also managed to puncture the front tire with what looks like an ice pick right down to the tube that you see here. But see, they did all this and they thought they were just dealing with a couple normal idiots instead of seasoned mechanics.
You're about as useful as a pookie flavored lollipop.
Well, surprise, it only took us 2 days to fix it.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive!
Well, now that we had it running and driving within 2 days, we decided now it was time to give it its initial bath and really just start cleaning it up. And one of the first things we did after giving it a wash was to start wet sanding and polishing some of the old aluminum, especially these forks. These forks are from the 1965 Harley Davidson FLH, so they were beat up and scratched, and they're going to need another wet sanding and buffing. These plates were just aluminum, they were never polished, so I went about the task of polishing them up as best I could. They're probably going to get another wet sand and another polish here after a bit. The chrome tubes for the steering, they were also kind of pitted and stuff, and they were cleaned up and polished. The headers were fairly gross looking. They were pretty rusted and stuff like that. But there's a few tricks that you can use on chrome. One of them being Brillo pad. And look at how nice the valve covers and the headers actually came out. The headlight housing that you see here is also obviously the 64 Harley. And it was, you know, obviously beat up pretty good. It still needs a little bit more wet sanding and buffing, but it is definitely looking night and day different. It's really shining up. The front wheel, the chrome was just too far gone, so later on in the video you'll see what we did with that. Here is after we gave it a bath, did a little bit of polishing, and we parked her outside to get some sunlight to see what she looked like out in the daylight. We had to redo the suspension, so we got new shocks and new springs. The springs we made in-house, and yes, you can do that if you know what you're doing. And obviously we did, because they're functioning and working properly, and they look great. Now all my car guys here are going to know the struggle. The trike came here with a Quadrajet on it, one of which I know my grandfather had at least built twice, and I had rebuilt twice. It was past its prime. It was dumping fuel just horribly, so ultimately decided to get rid of it. I had a Holly on the shelf and went about the task of actually rebuilding it. It got ultrasonic. Everything was new. The only thing I wish I would have done with this carburetor when I did it was to rejet it, specifically for how this bike wanted to react, which is fine because later on we do something else different. But right here you see me doing my best to clean up and rebuild yet another carburetor. But like I said, all my gearheads out there are going to know that either the Quadrajet works or it doesn't. There's no in between with them, and well, this one was just done. It was just past its prime, so say hello to the next Holly that got put on there. I mean, it turned out well. It's done its job, but like I said, we do something different later on. Now here's when some of the other fun begins. Started taking off some parts. The fenders were just, well, they were in pretty poor condition. The paint was damaged on one side, and it was just boiled up from the tire actually rubbing it and stuff. And it was well scratched in an area that is kind of odd. And it just didn't look like it was something that just accidentally happened, if that makes sense. So threw them in the blasting cabinets and just started stripping all the paint. This is one of the rear fenders here. The front fender, which I believe is the video coming up here. We'll see. Yes, this is the front fender, and sandblasting away on it. Right now, for some reason, the sandblaster was acting up. It turns out that I had ate the inside of the gun again, so I had to stop what I was doing and unfortunately do some repairs to my equipment, which, you know, maintenance does happen. And then I started, when I got back into this, I started noticing something. I noticed well, you're gonna see. You see it showing up right there. You guys know exactly what that is. Bondo. It's a 1964 Harley FLI front fender that's been well beat up. I didn't realize how much Bondo was in it until I started sandblasting, so I had to remove all the Bondo. But just finding Bondo was bad enough.
No! No!
It did take a little bit to get the Bondo off too. Like I said, the fender is old and it's beat up and stuff like that, but it was worth it. It was a good solid shell. Had some help here with my two nephews. I love being able to teach people stuff, and this was no exception. But of course, I'm also a slave driver too, so one of them got a shoe thrown at him. And off we go with the Bondo. You can see how much I had to skim this. It was coated pretty good. Took a little bit of time to get this sanded down, but the end result was absolutely fantastic. It was very smooth. Even the corners of the rear fenders, of course, had to be done. I forgot to mention that, so let's go back to that. Because these were obviously welded together. They were handmade. But they were also re-skimmed, and I had another little young'un there who was giving me a hand learning how to flat sand and get them shaped up and ready to go. Well, you guessed it. It is homemade booth time. We put up some plastic, and of course there's plastic on the floor. We had plastic all around me, and of course if you look in the top corner there is actually a vent. Right here I am laying down the primer on two of the pieces because one of the other fenders, well, there was something on my hoodie. I did not know it. After prep, I must have rubbed my arm against the fender, and all these bumps started showing up in the primer. So immediately I grabbed it and pulled it out of the booth and handed it over to Chris, and Chris did his best to wipe it down so we could re-prep it and get it back in the booth. The greatest thing that was to me, though, was I got to use the very paint gun that my grandfather used at Caterpillar, and that he used to actually paint everything he ever made. The tractor, the trikes, this trike. He used single stage. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But the primer was proper, so I sprayed it through this gun, which had a very heavy needle. And actually after this, the gun was, well, it was retired. I opted to polish it, clean it up, make it look real nice, real beautiful, and it now sits on the shelf as a memento of not only this project, but the other projects, including my own truck, that I use this paint gun on. I'm a sentimental guy, so having that paint gun really does mean a lot to me, and it was a true honor to use it once again on something that he just loves so much. And before I get yelled at, yes, I realized I was doing a side sweep there for a minute, and I adjusted myself and stopped myself from doing that, especially during the paint process. But we're not perfect. I'm just thrilled to have the skill necessary to actually do this myself instead of have it outsourced. I really don't like doing any outsourcing, so you know, it's cheaper to not outsource. See, there it is. I told you the other fender was going to come back eventually. Chris did a really good job, really quick job of getting it cleaned back up, get all the primer off, and of course we went through the process of, like I said, having to completely re-prep it. It was wiped down. It was cleaned off as best we could, tack cloth, you name it. Because like anybody will tell you, your base layer is going to be your most important layer. It sets everything up for you. If it's bad, if it's wrong, then the whole thing is going to start looking bad and wrong. Of course, you see me, I'm just really making sure that there's nothing on it this time. See if there's making sure with my hand there, unfortunately, which like I said, we wiped it down again with a chemical to keep it clean. But I had to check and see if there was any rough spots or anything else like that from getting it wiped down. You know, we tried to avoid that. I decided to throw a few of these still shots from the priming in here just because I really like the fact that, I mean, you can see that I'm using the very paint gun, like I said, that my grandfather used to paint everything he ever built. To me, it was an honor to get that ability to use that as if he would. And it was very old, and it was time for retirement, so it got polished up and put on the shelf. Actually, here's a photo after I had broke it down, cleaned it up, and polished it. Well, since one of us here completely forgot to turn on the camera, Chris was kind enough to stand outside the plastic and kind of poke in and take pictures of me painting the fenders. I'm doing this with some of my old guns, but the problem is the old guns, well, they're old and they were cheap and they weren't quite up to the task. So I had to kind of sand down the paint and hit it again with a new gun. Went ahead and purchased a new gun, new paint system with the fancy disposable cups and stuff like that. You know, you got to get into this century sometime or another. And yeah, see, I just didn't like this gun. But I really like this one. And of course, yes, I am wearing a respirator mask. Like I keep telling everybody, I only have 2 brain cells to rub together. And this kept me from, losing one of those 2. You got to be able to breathe. But the new gun, look at it, it laid down like glass. Absolutely beautiful. I was thrilled to death with the outcome and couldn't wait to let them dry so we could put them back on. There is a difference between drying and curing. Some people just don't know that. Well, then obviously it was time to start taking parts off and breaking it down so I could get to the red. You want to obviously do it properly, so the more you can take off, the better. It was kind of interesting being able to reverse engineer some of the stuff that he had done and seeing how he had done it, and just realized the genius of how he put things together. Now I know where I get it from, I guess. Now you can see what I'm talking about with the chalky paint. Everything around me, including myself, suddenly just turned red. I mean, really red. There's a pair of jeans that got thrown away because they were pink. Of course, if you run out of plastic in a pinch, trash bags work wonderful. Hey, it works, whatever. I left this part of the prep process in here, just a short video of it, because, well, the most important thing you can do is to do your prep. The better your prep is, the better the paint's going to be. So I spent quite a bit of time doing the sanding and prep wiping and cleaning and making sure it was clean of debris, of anything possible that could blow up, from the plastic or from the engine or anything else that could possibly have ruined the paint job. It took quite a while, but it was absolutely worth it with the end result. Well, at least I remembered to turn on the camera to do the painting in the front of the vehicle. Yes, I finally remembered. Well, I know I'm supposed to be taking a lot of video and photos and stuff like that when I'm doing these projects, especially since I plan on putting a video together, but I get into the groove, I start just working my ass off with it, and then I just forget. There's a lot of projects that I've done over the years that don't even have photos or videos or anything else like that. So the only thing that people see is the finished product. They don't get to see exactly how it was made. I've done that a few times now. One of the shelves that I just built recently, I kind of forgot to take a lot of photo and video of it. I did kind of put one together for it, but it was a real small, short, and to the point video because, like I said, I was busy building it, so I didn't think about to fire up the camera and get started. But this was a lot of interesting. There were a lot of little spots here that I had to paint, and to get it uniform was a little bit difficult at times. But the finished product speaks for itself. But it took quite a while, and see, I started getting nervous. You can see me kind of look up a little bit, because even though the plastic is taped down very well, it's still trying to shake obviously from the air pressure of the gun. And I was worried that the overspray that's hitting the plastic, it turns into a powder, and I was waiting for it to get into the paint and then start causing major dirt nibs, but it didn't. I was pleasantly surprised and very, very, very thankful, actually, that did not happen. Well, and to be perfectly clear, I am not a professional painter. I never claimed to be, but I learned. Many years ago, I wanted to learn how to do it, and my car was at a body shop, and I decided to help out prepping, priming and blocking, and all that, and got to learn pretty good from a dear friend. He's probably one of the best painters I know. And then later on, several years later, I ended up helping a friend of mine at his body shop. And I started doing some minor projects of my own, learning how to do it. Didn't go to school for it. Just decided I wanted to learn how to do it. Just like everything else I know. That's kind of how I started. I got an interest in it and just ran with it. I don't know everything about it. I'm not a super professional, but I think, like I said, the work speaks for itself. I did a pretty good job. At least I think I did a pretty good job. I'll let you guys be the judge of that. How's that? I absolutely love this color. This red is just amazing. It's within a shade of the original color. I did as best as I could to get it as matched as the original, and I think we did a pretty good job getting it matched. There was a little bit of an issue at the beginning, getting the color just right, but to me, it's as close as I could. I mean, the thing was painted in 1991 with single stage, so it did kind of lose its color, but we did the best we could to kind of timeline it and bring that color back so it looked almost exactly as it did when it was first done. At first I thought for certain we were going to have to recover the seat because it was very dingy, but did a little bit of a detail trick on it and it came out just perfect. Looks beautiful. Went ahead and put some tread tape on the stairs there because, well, it gets kind of slick when it's wet. And one thing it didn't have is there was never a plate underneath the seat. I went ahead and built one, painted it, and put it on. It looks a lot better. It cleans it up real well. The front rim, like I said, the chrome was absolutely destroyed, so Drag Specialties, shout out to you for having a replacement. It just looks beautiful. It sets it off real well. The rear hubcaps, I wanted to go retro, so I went ahead and got the full moons, and they look awesome. They really do. I love them. This was the horn bracket. The horn bracket, of course, was aluminum. It was never polished. I went ahead and polished it. I took the horns themselves off and gave them the same treatment. Wet sanded them a little bit and buffed them out, and they turned out wonderful. And I'm glad to put them back on. They work perfect, and they have a unique sound. Now, my father and I, Kenny Jr., decided that You know, some of the valve covers and stuff were getting a little bit dingy. They were getting kind of pitted, and it didn't have enough chrome on it. So we decided we were going to put a lot of chrome on this thing. New intake, new carburetor, everything is polished, and it looks amazing. It looks absolutely amazing. Here I'm just making a bracket and doing it the old way. Instead of just drilling a hole and sticking a bolt through it, the brackets that I made are drilled and tapped. And this is an example one. This is for the kickdown cable. It really needed one. The new intake, it wouldn't allow for it the kickdown cable to actually adjust properly, so I had to take the existing bracket and build it just like it was, but just a little bit longer and a little bit off to the left. Well, I tried to showcase some of the completed brackets, but obviously you can't see them. But what you can see is just how beautiful all the polished and chrome parts look. They do look fantastic, but everybody knows they get dirty. So it's gonna be a lot of fun trying to keep it clean.
You will ride eternal, shining and chrome.
Well, here it is. This is the first time after the restoration and the first wipe down it got and everything that it's seen sunlight since it came home. I really love the way it turned out. It looks absolutely stunning. It's just an amazing piece of machinery, and I'm glad to be able to share it with everybody.
She's sweet.
Now, the ticking that you heard in that video of the initial start is not a lifter, even though they're notorious for it. No, actually it was a transmission failure. The transmission that was in it was heavily damaged due to chemicals eating the clutches and whatever else, and the torque converter was just done. So, surprise, rebuilt one, put it back in. Chris and I got another transmission, and you can see right here it's already rebuilt, it's back in, and we're back up and running already. Chris, just wanted to say thank you for taking time out of your day to come and give me a hand when you could. It's much appreciated. To my family, thank you for believing in me and being there through this entire process. Love you all.